Welcome to Speaking Concretely, the official podcast of the Cement Association of Canada. I'm Martha Murray, Vice President of Public Affairs and Advocacy at the Cement Association. I'm filling in for Adam Auer, who is on vacation this week. Today, we're joined by Dr. Andrew Stewart, member of the Cement Association's board and Senior Vice President, Cement Industrial Canada and Geocycle North America at Amrize Building Materials. Amrize recently launched on the New York Stock Exchange, spinning off from Holcim, or as many of you are most familiar with, Lafarge Canada. Thanks for joining us today, Andrew.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here, Martha. Thanks for hosting for us today.
I'm happy to do it. So let's start right off. And I'm sure this is something listeners are wondering about, but where does the name Amrize come from and what does it mean?
The word Amrize is a connection between ambition and rising. It took us a good year to come up with this name. There's many ideas, many things bandied about internally, trying to figure out a good solution for this new company, this North American spinoff that's going to create its new and unique path from the old Holcim mother company, and also for Lafarge here in Canada, which is an incredible history of a brand within Canada building materials. So the ambition rising idea both reflects our own ambition to rise up this new company as an independent North American-based company, but also to reflect our customers' ambition and what they're trying to achieve, rising up their projects, rising up their companies, helping them develop with the best possible building materials. It's also a reflection of our current business portfolio, which is not only what people think of Lafarge Canada historically as being concrete, aggregates, cement, but also the roofing company that we've been developing over the years in North America under the name Elevate, Malarkey, other names as well. And it's really rising from the foundations of structures up to the rooftop. So reflecting also on the scope of our business, what our customers are trying to achieve, and what also we're trying to achieve with this new company.
Great. Very interesting, both unique and very meaningful. So what does this spin-off mean for the way Amrize will build and operate in Canada?
So it shouldn't change a huge amount. So what we have from our legacy is the largest building materials company in Canada. You would have seen Lafarge across Canada, and almost every major city in Canada, you'll see the concrete trucks going past. Those trucks will now have Amrize on the side. Inside of those trucks, inside the trucks of our other products, is the same. It's high quality solutions, very technically strong, working with our customers in the most efficient way possible, backed up by extreme depth of innovation and technological know-how that you can count on us to be producing the best possible products to build the best possible thing that you want to build as our customer.
Let's get a little personal now. So you've been in the cement industry for a long time, starting with Holcim in Europe back in 2007, and then moving to Canada in 2015. How have you seen the industry evolve over that time?
You know, it's interesting when I'm sitting in our company and with other colleagues in other companies, I'm not one of the more senior people. Right, I'm pushing 20 years now, and it's interesting to see that's not a long experienced person within our industry. It's incredible, actually. Sometimes when you're speaking with people, how many years they've had working in this industry, developing. I have a decent amount of time under my belt, but certainly have to have a huge amount of respect for colleagues who've been here even twice as long or more than I have, which is quite phenomenal tenures. It also speaks to the resilience of our industry and how good of a place it is to build a career that you can still have in one place. An entire career for that many years in one industry. But what I would say is really changes since I began in 2007, first in Europe and then about 10 years ago moving to Canada. Steady modernization of the industry, I would say. We have incredibly expensive, large assets that we've done a pretty good job as an industry over the years globally of modernizing to bring new technologies, modern technologies to be more efficient in every way, whether it's energy, water, all kinds of things. The very first cement plant I visited, the year I started, was a wet cement plant. And you'd be tough pressed to find even a wet cement plant to visit these days. And almost every plant in the world is twice as efficient from thermal energy as that plant that I visited on my very first visit. So huge effort there. Big capital being employed. really trying to improve the overall footprint of the industry and be efficient to produce the best products at the lowest possible cost, right? The other one I would say is advanced solutions. So again, steady and incremental growth of non-traditional general use cement, 95% clinker, 5% gypsum, nothing special, just the same thing people have made for 100 years. We're way past that, but without really a big bang. So little incremental steps along the way, slowly fly ashes and slags and other alternative cementitious materials have become more and more common. The concrete producers have gotten better and better at using them over the years. And so we've reduced the footprint of the final product and the intermediate products that go into the final products. So slow and steady winning the race, and producing better and better materials. The third thing I would say is generational shift. So when I started, the industry was really dominated by people who have been there 30, 40 years and kind of know how it works, know how to make cement, know how to crush aggregates, know how to do concrete. And a lot of it was in people's brains. And I would say over the past 20 years, what I've observed is uh, some of the big strives and improvements we've made as an industry is because of the generational shift of people not necessarily staying for that long or having that much experience. That things like processes and standardization and more back technical support to people to call to help has really become much more robust. One of the stories that I like to take to say internally. So my wife, she's a nurse, and when we were still living in Switzerland, she had a nursing team of 40 nurses working directly for the one nursing head. And I couldn't believe how on earth can it be safe and effective to have 40 direct reports? And the answer was standard education, standard processes. Everyone knows what they're supposed to do because no one's trying to reinvent the wheel every morning they come to work. And we were 20 years ago a bit in that system where everyone kind of knew what to do because of the long experience and maybe their grandparents had worked in the cement plant too, so they just knew it. And now, okay, how do we make sure that everyone knows what to do from education and process? And I think we've come a long way in that regard. And probably the most impressive thing, certainly I see internally for us, is the incredible safety improvements we've had over these years. That the impact to people outside of the workplace is far reduced from what it was when I started. We're reduced by almost a factor of 10 in how many significant injuries we have over the course of the years, that it's become very rare to have a very serious event, whereas it was extremely commonplace when I began. And a lot of that was because too many people weren't really thinking about how they were doing things and were just doing them how they knew from their experience. And we can't rely on experience after this generation change.
Great. Very, very interesting. So, what would you say is something that you're most proud of, one or two things, in your career in the industry so far?
You know what I love about this industry is seeing cool stuff being built. So, the bread and butter is not always the most luxurious projects, but to someone building a new driveway in their house, that this is a luxurious project, right? So you see even small jobs have some beauty to them. But that said, I find it incredible when you see really big infrastructure, large buildings being put in place. I was fortunate a few years ago to have worked on a large hydroelectric dam with a concrete team I was leading, seeing that go from a river to renewable power, uh, working on site, aggregates, ready mix, just incredible to see these things come together. So thinking over my career, those are really the standout ones. Seeing incredible things being built by super friendly, super nice people, enjoying making an impact.
Great. And what misconception do you hear the most about the cement industry?
So it's the trifecta: old, dirty, and boring. So there's a sense, and I think all of the industry players have a little bit of difficulty recruiting a young generation into the industry because of those three: old, dirty, and boring, right? And I'd say the first one is old. Maybe I'm not so young anymore. I still feel like I am, but the average age of my team is 42. So not 25, but not old anymore. There's very few baby boomers left. They've mostly retired now. I have maybe 5 or 10% left in that generation, and slowly we're changing generations. So we're not particularly old anymore, even though people from the outside think that we're all kind of 60-year-old men doing our jobs here, but that's not the case. Boring, we're a heavy industry. It can be boring maybe for non-technical people sometimes. But when you go visit these plants, we had, for example, this past weekend, there was an open house at the Bath cement plant. So I got to take my family there to show them what we're doing. And these facilities are absolutely incredible for someone with a STEM background looking at the equipment, the size of the motors, the size of the amount of energy we're using. Like it's really a huge, impressive piece of engineering marvel to create materials at the scale we're creating it. And so I don't see that as boring. And certainly people who join our industry, I hope they're not seeing it as boring because it's extremely exciting. On the future side of it, what's exciting is you see how many people are interested today because of the sustainability impacts in cement, concrete, building materials. How do we build more with less? So I think for the next 10, 20 years, it's also an extremely exciting place to be that's rife with innovation, lots of startups. Every week I'll be talking to a new startup. Suddenly, I think we're probably more sexy than boring than we were for the past 100 years. It's quite incredible. And then on dirty, certainly there's a legacy there where we've had to overcome a little bit of the way the industry was 50 or 100 years ago, which was a heavy impact industry for sure. Um, when I see what's coming out of my plants today, from the point of view of CO2 or other things, very, very efficient, right? We still have a long way to go to get to a net zero, but it's been an incredible path we've gone on. One of my pet peeves I often see, especially in some of these startup presentations, they use a very old metric that you produce a ton of CO2 for a ton of cement. And I'm not even aware of anyone today who's at least 30 or 40% lower than that. And you see this old reference and you're like, we are so much better than people think we are. We're still not where we want to be, but we're so much better than people think. So we're not nearly as dirty as we were, and we're going to be a lot less dirty in the future as we strive forward, right? And that goes back a little bit to the old and boring. We need young people. We need people who get excited about these problems to help us solve them.
For sure. I would certainly echo those comments. I mean, I think coming from a non-technical background, and I always say to others who I'm talking to outside of the industry, just go to a cement plant and you'll find out how fascinating it is. And I always learn something at every cement plant tour I go to. So I think those open houses are really valuable for the general public. And I would also say that sustainability was what attracted me to the industry too, over 10 years ago, as someone who had no background in cement and concrete. And I probably was one of those people that thought it was old, boring, and dirty. And it really is a fascinating industry with lots of innovation. And especially, right now we're seeing more and more. So, which kind of just leads right into the next question, which, of course, innovation is an important aspect to stay competitive in this environment. So, what is Amrize doing to innovate in the cement industry?
So that for me, there's two main sides of innovation. There's the process innovation. How do we make our plants the best possible plants they can be? How do we deliver the product to the customers where they need it, when they need it, how they need it? And there's a lot going on in that area that we don't talk about a lot. But again, it goes back to that idea of incremental improvement day after day, year after year. You can accomplish a lot in 10 years and maybe not so much in 1 year. But when you look back, wow, we've done a lot there. But maybe the more exciting side is the product side and the customer side, helping them build the best possible way they can. And this is where we're day to day probably innovating much more, trying to understand how our products work, how we can minimize the impact of them and maximize the value and the efficiency finally to the customer. I think this is really, it's the job of a company to bring the best possible products forward to customers that they can use in the best possible way. And there's so many areas beyond just here's a ton of rocks or a ton of cement at your local plant to do what you want to do. And there's so many different aspects of our business that people don't think about. They don't think about, okay, how well does this develop strength? How quickly can I build tower in a downtown city so that people can move in as soon as possible, right? Especially when you think about housing opportunities for people. How can I make sure that I don't have a risk that halfway through this build I'm going to have materials that don't match the other materials? Even color. How do I make sure I have consistency of color if I'm doing pavers for a driveway? Right? There's so many aspects beyond the traditional thoughts of our products that we try to consider. And it goes back to, what do our customers need? How can we innovate in a direction that supports them the best way possible?
And of course, the big topic of the day is AI. So, does AI play a role in innovation plans for Amrize at all?
To an extent, we're still heavy on traditional intelligence, much more than artificial. We have a few things in place. So I can give an example. Just last week, one of the cement mills in my group, we actually had an AI generated alert that takes all the sensor information and aligns them together and says, "Hey," essentially it says, uh, "I've seen this before, and I've seen that people have had an issue in other places when these signals look like this." And so it didn't identify a failure, but identified, hey, the plant team should take a look what's going on here because it's a strange situation that has led to issues before. So we're seeing things like that that kind of give a prompt to support, but don't necessarily give the answer to the support yet. What we've also done is they've started using AI on concrete mix designs. There is a massive amount of information on concrete mix designs, but also a lot of gaps when you get to the very specific implementation of a mix design for one project based on these particular materials, especially when you start changing the individual materials in the mix. And we've had some success there too, that AI can help understand that data set and drive you to a better solution than you'd be able to drive yourself. So I would say we're in the birthing stages of something that could be massive, but we still need to figure out how to harness that to make it practical. I don't see a world where a person won't be involved for a long time in making sure that products are correct, that buildings are right, that infrastructure is developed in a good way. We have an industry where there is a extremely low tolerance for high risk situations, right? We want to innovate at a rapid speed, but we don't want to tolerate risk, and nor should we, right? We're building things that people live in, that drive on, and it's an important aspect to our society that we get all these things right. So how do we balance doing these innovative things with having low risk? And AI can help with that, but I don't think anytime in the near term we're going to be able to get past having a person there to judge it being reasonable or not reasonable.
It's fascinating, really, where it will go. Um, for sure, we're at its infancy stages to see how we can use it best. A lot of talk today about the housing shortage in Canada, not only the housing shortage, but affordability. And in your opinion, where can the cement industry and Amrise help to restore supply and affordability?
So we don't build housing. So we're a step or two removed from the direct, or maybe I should say more direct solution to that problem. Where we see our position there is, how do we provide the products and solutions that allow for the most efficient way to construct, in this case, housing, right? And not only does that go, as I was mentioning earlier, with product itself, but also the logistics to it, the time of it. How do you create solutions from a building materials side that allows someone to build things robustly, quickly, the most efficient way that leads to the best possible cost position that you can live in for your own particular terms? We certainly have an issue in Canada. Costs are a little bit wild for housing. It's a solution that we can do part of the work for, but the solution isn't going to be holistically with us. That's our niche, is efficiency on the building material side. But everyone in the industry, government, and beyond has to work together to figure out how that puzzle works together.
Absolutely. We're one of the many partners. So now a bit on to the carbon. So the cement industry, as we all know, is a significant carbon emitter, and we have a plan to reach net zero by 2050. But how specifically is Amrise working to improve its carbon footprint, with some specific examples?
Yep. So we're working hard, especially in Canada, where I have my responsibility. One of the things that I love about having the cement plants is you can think of them not only as a production site, but also as a large toy for experimentation. Um, my sales pitch to process engineers when they're looking to come into the industry is, look at the size of this toy that you get to play with. What more could you dream of as an engineer, right? And part of that also is being very open to innovative startups. We're a big company, so we tend to be slow with new ideas, but we can allow ourselves to be prompted by startups coming with other ideas and giving them the facilities and the professionalism to develop what they come with from an idea point of view. So there's a lot going on from that direction. So what I try to offer within the startup community is a place to practice and test, but also a place where we help you think about things that are at the peripherals of whatever technology it is you're trying to develop. One of the classic examples would be a low carbon solution that's very far away from anyone who needs it. So, you could go northern Quebec, you might be able to find something that's wonderfully low carbon, but you're 2,000 kilometers away from anyone who actually wants to build with it. It doesn't matter how effective or how cheap you can get it there. It needs to be at the site wherever you're building, whatever you're building. And so logistics play a huge role in some of these things, and we can help with that. We can also help with another challenge that a lot of these companies have. They have the core idea of a technology that could be massively impactful, but again, at the periphery, things like material handling. How do you move powders from one place to another? How do you move slurries here and there? We're experts in material handling. We're experts in logistics. We're not just cement people in this sense. We do all the things around cement to get it to the place it needs to be, when it needs to be there, how it needs to be there. And so I try to leave a very open door to new ideas and people pursuing those ideas as startups in order to let them help ourselves and develop these new things. Internally, we have a few, of course, prized things that we're trying to work on. Normally, together with startups, any startups listening, I'd encourage them to reach out. We're always interested in new ideas. We've initiated carbon capture and utilization at Bath with Hyperion out of Ottawa, near yourself. We've done projects in other plants, Carbicrete we've been working with in Quebec. So we're really trying to use the big industrial base we have to maximize it and help support that community of new ideas grow up through our ability to give that. We have depth of engineering, we have depth of assets. How can you exploit us to try to develop your technology as best as possible?
That's great. Lots of exciting opportunities out there. I'm going to throw another question in there. Just, and I apologize because you didn't know this one was coming, but as the person who's responsible for liaising with governments at all levels on a regular basis, so what do you think government most needs to understand about our industry that it doesn't appreciate now?
That's an excellent question. So, where I would love government to understand is how complicated of a CO2 regime we have in the Canadian different provinces. I have 5 cement plants in 5 different provinces with 5 different CO2 schemes, which cannot be traded between one another. And this is extremely difficult, not only for me even to remember what the nuances are of each particular system, but also, the CO2 travels across borders. How do we make those systems more unified to allow people like me to make more clear decisions related to CO2 that can offset one another between different provinces? It shouldn't matter, but it does significantly. So I would love to see on the government side a much more concerted effort around CO2. We all want to reduce, but the complexity of the system we have today is making it very hard to manage amongst the different stakeholders.
That's great. Well, that's definitely something that hopefully we will be able to raise uh, strongly in the next month when are meeting with some federal officials. So, thank you for that one. And then finally, let's end it off. What's your outlook for Amrize and the cement industry over the next few years?
I'm very excited. And now I have to say that, but it's also true. So when I started, we were a little bit old and boring, probably not quite as dirty as people thought we were, and now we're much better in those 3 things. When I see the youth coming in, the engineers straight out of university, the excited faces of our sales team going out and getting new roles and responsibilities. People are excited to be with Amrize. They're excited to be here with us in the biggest building materials provider within Canada, but they're also excited to be in an industry that's changing and changing for a much better position in the world from sustainability, but also even outside of sustainability, from the quality of products, from the types of structures you can build. It's really an exciting place to be. And it's so tangible that you can really touch and feel what you've accomplished this year, this decade, this month, whatever you have it. And I think so many people find it so satisfying that you can really see your efforts in the flesh or in the concrete in this case, and not just numbers on a screen or a philosophical idea. It's really tangible. You can reach out and touch it. Literally, you can ride your bike on it, drive your car on it, land your plane on it. It is an incredible industry with an incredible future. Everything I've seen from startups, new ideas, how we're developing in the industry, we're going to keep having cement and things like cement for a long, long time. And we're going to need people that love that. We're going to have that cement and cementitious materials. And I just think it's such a fascinating industry. And it's absolutely wild to consider that you take something that pours a bit like water, is super fluid. You can put it into whatever shape you want and expect it to set within, plus or minus 30 minutes, and then expect it to be there 100 years from now. It's just wacky how cool of a product that is and how resilient it is for the future. And I think the industry will be changing and will be getting better and will be getting more efficient. But that fundamental of helping people build their own ambitions on things out there that people can touch and feel is just a wonderful place to be. It's really an exciting industry right now, and it'll be exciting for another 20, 30 years at least with the direction we're going with net zero.
I certainly agree with you. So, Andrew, thank you very much for your time today. Really appreciate you taking the time to be with us today. And I look forward to seeing you very soon.
Thanks for hosting for us today.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Please continue to share the podcast with others, and we will see you next time.